All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching this webinar on the 1500 form and ICD-10 pointing. There's no audio taping or videotaping allowed in any unauthorized reproduction, dispensing, or forwarding of this target coding webinar is illegal. The information in this presentation is for educational purposes. It's not intended to be a substitute for your thorough clinical decision making. It's not intended to be legal advice. Target Coding is not a law firm. We don't provide legal services. CPT is a registered trademark of the AMA. Every attempt has been made to make certain that the information in this presentation is 100% accurate. However, it's not guaranteed. A little bit about myself before we get started. My name is Dr. Marty Kotler. I am a chiropractor. I'm also a certified professional compliance officer, certified billing and coding specialist. I'm a little unconventional. The fact that I'm a chiropractor and a certified coder, well, let's look at it this way. Most chiropractors are not certified coders, and most certified coders are not chiropractors. So I bring a unique approach towards coding and compliance and the clinical approach towards treating patients. My areas of expertise include CPT, ICD-10, HCPCS coding, Medicare and HIPAA compliance, compliant cash plans. I've written many training manuals on billing, coding, and documentation. I'm a contributing writer to numerous publications and journals, not only for chiropractic, but for acupuncture, massage therapy, and physical therapy. And I'm a guest speaker at many state association conferences nationwide. All right, let's begin here. So the 1500 form. This form, many people call it the HCFA form still, the 1500 form, HCFA 1500 form. I just call it the 1500 form. It's a universal health insurance claim form. It's developed and maintained by the National Uniform Claim Committee. That's nucc.org, not the federal government. So the present version is 0212. So just want to make sure you're using the right form. This form, version 0212, replaced version 0805 many years ago. So here's the form. Again, make sure you're using the right version. In the bottom right corner, you see 02012. So we're going to break the form into two portions, the top portion and the bottom portion. The top portion has 13 boxes or items. I like to call them boxes. The form has a total of 33 boxes, but we're going to first go through the top portion of the form. Again, it has 13 boxes. Now, if you look at the first 8 boxes, they're pretty straightforward. You're going to check if it's the patient's insurance situation, Medicare, group, health, insured ID in 1A. 2 is the patient's name. 3, date of birth. 4, insured's name. 5 is the patient's address. 6 is the relationship to the insured. 7 is the insured's address. 8 is you'd leave blank. That's reserved for NUCC use. So now so the first 8 boxes are pretty simple. Again, if you have questions, send them in to us. Send your questions to info@targetcoding.com, or you could put them into the chat box and we can get to them later. So let's start with box number 9. Let's take a look at this. So box number 9, it's got 5 areas. It's got 9, 9A, 9B, 9C, and 9D. So we're going to get back to this box in a couple of minutes. You'll see 9B and 9C, you don't have to put anything in there, but in 9, 9A, and 9D, you may have to put some information in there. We're going to get back to that in a couple of minutes. Let's move on to box number 10. Question here. You need to answer this question. Is patient's condition related to A, employment, B, auto accident, C, other accident? For a regular patient that's not involved in any type of work comp or PI case, you're going to answer no to all of those 3 questions most of the time. But there are some instances where you have to fill that out based on the patient's situation. So here's a pretty common one. Medicare as a secondary on a PIP claim. So you'll have a patient that's a Medicare beneficiary that's in an automobile accident. Let's say the patient has State Farm. So you're probably billing a State Farm if you're a no-fault state. If you're a fault state, you might be putting your package together and sending it to an attorney, and maybe there's MedPay. But the goal here is to get the primary carrier here, or the primary, whoever's responsible to pay, that's directly related to the auto accident. So you do that. Now, there are times where State Farm, Geico, Allstate, right, your PI carriers, they may say, well, benefits are exhausted, or the patient went to an MR, an IME. Now, you're not getting paid anymore. Benefits have been exhausted. So sometimes the patient and or the patient's attorney says, well, now bill Medicare. Okay, so now you're going to bill Medicare. Medicare is the secondary on PIP claims, so back to box 10. This is an auto accident. Make sure you check yes to 10B and put the place, which is the state, the 2 letters for your state where the accident occurred. And then when you get to box 11D, now we're moving on to box 11D, it says, is there another health plan? Well, if Medicare is secondary, then yes, you have to tell Medicare that there is a primary carrier involved. So you'd have to check yes to 11D. See, these little boxes, you may not be filling out perfectly. You might be saying no in box 10 or no to 11D. If you don't fill out these claims properly, you can be accused of filing a false claim. So you don't want to do that. So fill these out transparently, disclose everything. So again, Medicare is secondary, so you're going to check yes to 11D. Now it says, if yes, go back to items 9, 9A, and 9D. So this is how it would look. 9, patient's name. There's the State Farm policy number in 9A, and then there's the name, State Farm, in 9D. So Medicare says on secondary PIP claims, they're not going to pay unless you could show them that you've exhausted all other ways for reimbursement to occur. Okay, let's move on to box 12 and 13. Those are the last 2 boxes in the top portion of the form. So box 12, it says patients or authorized person's signature, authorization to release information in order to process the claim. Many software programs will just automatically print out signature on file. Make sure you have a signature on file. I've seen that happen many times where the doctor and staff is printing out claims and sending them electronically. It says signature on file for box 12 and for box 13, which is the authorizing payment. Says signature on file. So the question is, do you really have a signature on file? Make sure that you have a signature on file, because you can't put that down if you don't actually have an original signature. So there's a few ways in which you can do it. You could have the patient sign an original 1500 form in boxes 12 and 13. You could create a separate standalone form. Oh no, this is a this is a separate standalone form that you can create, which is the authorization for assignment and release, which takes care of boxes 12 and 13. So yeah, and then also on your new patient visit, the initial visit, there's a lot of different forms that need to get filled out or may need to get filled out. You know, basic health history form, patient returns, you know, patient hasn't been in it a while, they come back, they should fill out an updated questionnaire. Should have financial policies and letters of protection, hardship forms, insurance verification, HIPAA notice, authorization to release information, patient complaint form, that's a HIPAA form, testimonial and consent to release information. If you want to have a patient do a testimonial, that's nice. State-specific form. So yeah, in your form, make sure you get that authorization to release information and assignment. Now, there's a difference between the authorization to release information basic for the 1500 claim filing, but then there's one for HIPAA. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of forms. We're not going to go through all these forms today. This is the initial visit. Patient must sign off that they received or they've had the opportunity to get a copy of your HIPAA notice. All right, now, so that's it for the top half of the form. Now we're going to go to the bottom half of the form. That's boxes 14 through 33. So let's start with box 14. That's the date of the current illness. So if a patient comes in today, you put today's date. If the patient was in a car accident many years ago, whatever the car accident or on-the-job injury was, that's the date that goes in 14. And that doesn't change when it comes to auto and workers' comp cases. But a regular patient, Medicare patient, you should update box 14 as the patient's condition changes. And then we'll go to box 15, which is the initial treatment. Most plans don't require you to fill out box 15, but this would be the initial treatment would be the qualifier you would use and the date. And then we have box 16, date unable to work. 17, let's move on to 17, which is if you have a patient that was referred to you by another provider and the health plan that you're billing requires that you put the referring provider's information on the claim, well, that's going to go in 17, and the referring provider's NPI number goes into 17B. Don't fill out 17A, 17B. So some of you may be billing out for consultations, so you would need the name of the doctor that referred the patient over to you. Some of you are billing certain Medicare plans where they want you to put your own name in 17 and your own NPI number. I've seen that a few times. And you may have, if you're a physical therapy practice, you may need to put the medical doctor's name in 17 that referred you the patient. So there's a few reasons why you may need to fill out 17 and 17B. Box 18 is the dates the patient was hospitalized. If that's applicable, then we get to box 19. You may need to enter the date of the x-rays or the date of the part exam if this is a Medicare patient and you're a chiropractor billing Medicare. And then we move on to box 20, which is outside lab, yes or no. Then we get to box 21. This is the main box that you should be focusing on this form. Very important. This helps you tell the story of what's going on with the patient. If the patient has treatment, the patient has diagnoses that require long-term treatment, you want to have a certain hierarchy that you place the diagnosis codes in. And it's important to know the hierarchy because there are some plans that if you don't place the codes in the proper order, they just won't pay the claim. One example is Medicare. If you don't use the subluxation codes, the M99 codes, as the primary diagnosis in box 21, they'll just deny the whole claim. So important box, very important box. We'll get back to it. Many years ago, there was only 4 spaces. The prior form only had room for 4 diagnosis codes. And yes, every once in a while, I'll speak to a doctor or staff member and they say, oh, well, there's only room for 4 diagnoses on the claim form, and I have to correct the person because it's when the new form came out, the 02012 version, it went from 4 to 12 diagnosis codes that you can put in box 21. We'll get back to that box in a minute. Let's move on to 22, resubmission code. Probably going to leave that blank. 23, prior authorization. Probably going to leave that blank. 24A are the dates of service. That's pretty straightforward. 24B is the place of service. Let's talk about that. The place of service. Where did you actually provide the treatment? Well, if it's in the office, you're going to use the number 11. Some doctors I work with, they do home visits. Make sure you change 11 to the number 12. There's one instance right now with a doctor, that said he was going to the patient's home. He didn't change the number 11 to the number 12. He didn't tell his billing company. He changed, he was seeing the patient at home. So all the claims were going to the insurance company with the number 11. So this particular health plan pays for chiropractic treatments done at the home, but it doesn't pay for exams or re-exams. I know it sounds a little strange, but this particular health plan doesn't pay for exams or re-exams done in the home. Well, this doctor was putting down that he was doing the exams and re-exams in the office by placing the number 11 in box 24B. Well, audit occurred. The doctor had to give back $50,000 to the insurance company. So make sure you're using the right place of service. You want to be transparent. You want to give out and full disclosure on where you're treating the patient. You ever go to the patient's employment, place of employment? That's the number 18. Going to do a chiropractic treatment in a nursing facility, that's number 32. There are about 70 different place of service codes, so make sure you're using the right number. And then we go to 24C, you could leave that blank. 24D, that's where you're going to enter your CPT codes and or your HCPCS codes and modifiers. There's a whole bunch of examples there. Re-exam, 25 modifier. If you're going to bill Medicare as a chiropractor, there's the AT modifier with the spinal manipulation. And then we have 97140, 59. Now, here's something that's come up recently. Getting a lot of emails. Dr. Kotler, why are my claims getting denied when I use modifiers 25 and 59? Well, many providers have begun to experience a downpour of denials, particularly for claims submitted to Blue Cross Blue Shield plans. Blue Cross Blue Shield has implemented a new code auditing enhancement, which would be clinically validating modifiers. So this new software edit is focusing on 25, 59, and the XESPU modifiers. And it's resulting in inappropriate claim rejections for E&M services and CMT. And it's not just affecting chiropractors, it's affecting many different providers. So if you're using these modifiers, you're probably getting denied a lot in certain parts of the country. So according to the ACA, the denial state the modifiers are used inappropriately. So for modifier 25 issues, my recommendation is resubmit the claim without the 25. That might be your best recourse, but I would recommend you keep appealing. And perhaps if the health plans are flooded with appeals, they'll revisit this incorrect edit. Now, talking about modifiers, let me touch on the GP modifier. This is also causing a lot of issues. GP modifier means services delivered by a physical therapist. Wait a second, if you're a chiropractor listening to this, why would you need to use GP? That's a physical therapy modifier, right? Well, if your claims are getting denied by Medicare for modalities and therapeutic procedures, it could be because your Medicare carrier has implemented a new rule. So modalities like traction and stim and therapeutic procedures provided by chiropractors, although they're not covered by Medicare, oftentimes the patient may have a secondary that'll pick it up. So you should submit those services, those 97 codes and the G code with the GP and GY modifiers. If you don't do that, then the claim will get rejected and it'll transfer the liability from the patient to the doctor. It'll say patient may not be billed. So you don't want that to happen. So here's an example of what it would look like. GPGY for the stim, and then GPGY59 for the 97140 if you're doing it in a separate anatomic site than the CMT. Now, while we're talking a little bit about Medicare, I want to bring up this little Medicare Q&A. So here's the first question. Can you treat Medicare patients without being enrolled in the Medicare program? The answer is no. You either have to be enrolled or don't see Medicare patients at all. You need to, if you want to see Medicare patients, you must submit the claims to Medicare or don't see Medicare patients. You can't be in the middle where you say to patients, I'm not going to bill Medicare. I'm not in Medicare. I don't think I have a Medicare number. Just come on in, Mrs. Jones, and I'll give you a spinal adjustment and just pay me cash, and we're not going to bill Medicare. Can't do that. Can't do that. What did I say? Can't do that. That's illegal. So just make a decision. Do you want to see Medicare patients? Then get enrolled and bill Medicare. If you don't want to do that, then don't see Medicare patients at all. So you can't opt out. Chiropractors cannot opt out of Medicare. Now, the bottom question, can you collect cash from Medicare patients without billing Medicare? Yes, but the patient you have to be enrolled, number one. Number two, this is the point where the patient is receiving maintenance care. You give them the ABN form and they check option 2 on the ABN form. Now the patient is saying, yeah, I'll pay you cash and you don't have to bill Medicare. So this oftentimes gets people's attention. So I just wanted to point out to you that if you'd like to dig a little deeper into this, because this sounds a little bit, whoa, I didn't know that, or I've heard differently. It's right here. It says chiropractors cannot opt out of Medicare. You can go to the source here, the Medicare Benefit Policy Manual. Actually, I know some chiropractors and staff members, they say to the Medicare patients, we're not Medicare. We're not going to bill Medicare. Just sign the ABN form, Mrs. Jones, and just pay us cash. Well, you can't do that either, because if you're not enrolled in the Medicare program, you're not allowed to use ABN forms. Medicare says the ABN form is owned by us, Medicare. If you're not enrolled in the Medicare program, you can't use our forms. So if you want to learn more about that, go to the Medicare Claims Processing Manual, Chapter 30, Section 50.3. And just to, again, hit the point here, this is right from Medicare. It says doctors of chiropractic may not opt out of Medicare, noting that opting out and being non-par are not the same things. All right, so hopefully I clarified that. So then we move to box 24F, charges, units, G, H, leave blank, I, you could leave blank. 24J is where you would put the NPI number of the provider that's touching the patient. 25 is your tax ID number or Social Security number. 26 is the patient's account number. 27, let's talk a little bit about 27. Accept assignment, yes or no? Which one, yes or no? If you're in network and you're a par provider and or a par provider with Medicare, then you must accept assignment. Even if you check no, the checks are going to come to you. This is basically, where do you want the checks to go? Accept assignment means you want the checks coming to your office. If you check no, you don't want payment coming to you. You want it going to the patient. So out-of-network and non-par providers, you don't have to accept assignment. Now, if you're a true cash practice, we can get into that if you have questions on that another time or later, but a true cash practice should not accept assignment. And then we have box 28, which is the total charges. 29, amount paid, pretty straightforward. Box 30, you're going to leave that alone. You're going to leave that for NCC and UCC use. 31 is the doctor's name. 32 is the service facility. And then 33, let's talk a little bit about 33. So 33 is the billing provider info and phone number. And 33A, if you're an individual practice, sole proprietor, so then you have your individual NPI number in 33A. If you're a group practice, then you want to put your group NPI number in 33A. And then we have the back of the form. I think I was in practice about 5 years before I even realized there was anything on the back of the form. So there's some interesting information on the back of the form. Don't know if any of you have ever read it, but basically it says any person who files a false claim can get in big trouble. The patient's information in the top half of the form is true and accurate and complete. You're saying that the information here on this form does not violate any anti-kickback statutes. The information on this form states that these services were medically necessary and furnished by you or by your employee. And there's a whole bunch of other information on the back of the form. Now, a little bit about box 21. So now we're going to get into box 21 and show you how your documentation needs to work in conjunction when it comes to pointing, ICD-10 pointing. So I'm going to give you some examples and some information here. So because of ICD-10, your documentation has to be very specific. They always talk about, the ICD-10 experts talk about, coding to the highest degree of specificity. So I want to make sure you're doing that. You got to justify all the diagnosis codes you use. You see, back in the day, many years ago, if a patient came into my office and said, Dr. Kotler, I have low back pain and I have pain radiating down my leg, I just submitted sciatica as a diagnosis. I didn't really do anything to justify it. Well, that's not right. That's not good. I got away with it because nobody ever questioned me, but those days are over. You need to do something to justify your diagnosis code. Can't just go based on what the patient tells you. So there are many codes here, like, oh, okay, here's an example. Radiculopathy, very common diagnoses used by chiropractors. Cervical radiculopathy, there are many lumbar radiculopathy codes. So if a patient comes into your office and you diagnose that patient with cervical radiculopathy, I would strongly recommend that your notes say the patient has neck pain and radiating into an upper extremity or to the upper thoracic or the trapezius or all the way down the arm. There's some numbness, tingling, weakness. So yeah, those are the subjective findings. I would recommend you do some, I don't know, a couple of orthopedic tests. You don't have to go too crazy. I mean, Jackson compression or cervical distraction or foraminal compression. And then you probably should check reflexes. Check some muscles, see if there's any myotomal weakness. And your chiropractic portion of the exam should include, palpatory findings, subluxation, segmental dysfunction. So you want to be able to justify the codes you're billing here. If you're going to bill anything that has to do anything to do with the SI joint, I would recommend you do Yeoman's, Ganslin's. Those are the gold standard ortho tests, chiro tests. Just want to be able to substantiate the diagnosis codes you're using. Oh, this is a little cheat sheet. See, this is an excerpt from a book that I recommend, and it gives you about 25 of the most common diagnosis codes used by chiropractors and the ortho, neuro, and chiro tests to help substantiate it, just in case you're ever questioned. There's the book in the bottom right corner. That's the cover of the book. It's called The Best Chiropractic ICD-10 and CPT codes to improve reimbursement. All right, so here's a sample of diagnosis pointing. If you take a look at this claim, you'll see the patient comes in, and the first line item, we did a chiropractic adjustment, and we're just pointing to A and B. A is a disc disorder with radiculopathy. That's a pretty advanced diagnosis, M51.16, where you would need an MRI to prove that there's some disc involvement, like a herniated or a bulged disc, and that's disc disorder with radiculopathy. So there's nerve root compression. So that's what you're doing to the you're doing a chiropractic adjustment to the lumbar region to A and B. B is spasm, and then we go to the next line item is 97140 with the 59 modifier. That's pointing only to C and D. So C is M54.12. That's cervical radiculopathy. We went through that and how to justify that. M79.1 is myofascial pain. So yeah, if you want to make sure that you're combining your CPT codes and your diagnosis codes properly, I call it code linking. Myofascial pain is the diagnosis. Well, that links and pairs beautifully, like pairing wine and food, right? So myofascial pain pairs beautifully with manual therapy, myofascial release, 97140. Next line item, electrical stim, that's code 97014 or G0283. That's pointing to E and F. What's E and F? E is thoracic disc degeneration. F is pain in the thoracic region. So we're doing stim on the thoracic region. Next line item is 97110. Where are we doing that? Oh, that's to the lumbar region, A and B. I have another example here, a PI patient. Okay, so we're doing a 3-region adjustment. That's 98941. That's pointing to A, B, C, and D. Then we have therapeutic exercises. That's only on to A, B, and C. And then we're doing massage with the 59 modifier. It's a different region. That's just pointing to diagnosis codes E and F. That's a knee problem. Alrighty, so just a few closing comments. Please check with all the plans you bill prior to submitting claims to make sure that it is compliant. Do your best to stay on top of the changes. attend seminars, webinars, join your national and state professional associations. I just want to thank everybody for attending. I hope you learned a lot. You can email me directly. There's my direct email, drkotler@targetcoding.com. Website, targetcoding.com. Telephone number, 1-800-270-7044. We have a HIPAA secure fax number just in case you want to fax us 1500 forms or SOAP notes to review. You don't have to white out or black out the patient's names. We have a HIPAA secure fax number. You could also email us items with patient information on it to our HIPAA secure portal. You could email stuff there. So besides seminars and webinars, we also have 12 educational videos that we sell. We do on-site consulting. We have membership programs. We do hourly consulting also. We help doctors implement HIPAA compliance programs and Medicare policy and procedure manuals. We have a forms pack, a whole bunch of forms, 80 forms that we sell. Oh, here's the book again on the best codes to improve reimbursement. And the book gives you the codes that pay for the most visits. And as I mentioned earlier, we do compliance plans for acupuncturists and physical therapists, HIPAA plans. Our Smart Choice program is also very popular. We have an acupuncture webinar coming up in a few weeks. All right, so again, I want to thank everybody for attending. I hope you learned a lot.